In the vast silence of space, where stars gleam like distant dreams and darkness stretches beyond imagination, a forgotten secret stirs once more. For centuries, humanity has looked up at the night sky with a mixture of awe and longing, dreaming of freedom beyond Earth's bounds. But what if the key to that freedom was never truly lost? What if the very fleet that was thought to be a myth, buried in the shadow of history, was quietly preparing to return? This is the story of the Black Ship Dominion, a name whispered in forgotten corners of space lore, a force long believed extinguished, now awakening to reclaim what was stolen from humanity, the stars themselves. It all begins in a world that has grown complacent under the rule of powerful empires controlling the galaxy, where hope for independence flickers like a dying ember. The freedom once promised to humanity feels more like a distant memory, a legend from a time before control tightened its grip. But deep beyond the known territories, hidden in the void, lies the fleet, a battalion of colossal black ships, vessels built not just for war, but for liberation. These are no ordinary warships. They are the embodiment of human resilience, forged by generations who refused to surrender the dream of the stars. Their return threatens to shake the very foundations of the oppressive regime that has ruled for so long. This is not just a story about spaceships or battles in the endless night. It's about people, ordinary humans caught in the tides of a cosmic struggle. It's about the engineers who once built these legendary ships in secret, the pilots trained in shadowed halls far from the Empire's gaze, and the citizens whose lives hang in the balance between subjugation and rebellion. These are stories of hope, fear, courage, and sacrifice. And at the heart of it all, the Black Ship Dominion moves like a silent storm, ready to rewrite history. The galaxy has been fractured for so long, with factions vying for control, but none imagined the forgotten fleet would rise again. When the first signals of their return ripple across the stars, unmistakable black silhouettes cutting through the void, it sends waves of shock and disbelief. Who sent them? Why now? What do they want? The Empire scrambles to understand, but time is already running out. In the midst of this brewing storm, a young technician aboard a distant outpost stumbles on a mysterious transmission, an ancient distress call mixed with a call to arms. As they piece together fragmented clues, it becomes clear that the Black Ship Dominion's return is no accident. It's a calculated move to spark a rebellion that has been smoldering under the surface for decades. But with the Empire's eyes and weapons trained on anyone who dares resist, every step toward freedom comes with danger. There are whispers about the Dominion's leaders, shrouded figures who carry the legacy of those first pioneers who dreamed of breaking free from Earth's chains. These leaders are said to possess knowledge and technology so advanced it blurs the line between myth and reality. But with great power comes great risk, and not all within the Dominion agree on the path forward. Internal tensions threaten to fracture their fragile unity, just as the Empire rallies its forces. The stakes couldn't be higher. The return of the Black Ship Dominion could mean salvation or destruction, not just for those who fight beneath their banner, but for every soul caught between tyranny and freedom. And as the fleet emerges from the shadows, the universe holds its breath, waiting for the first strike that could ignite a war unlike any seen before. This is a tale of forgotten heroes and new beginnings, of shadows cast long ago finally stepping into the light. It is a story about reclaiming hope when all seems lost, about the relentless human spirit refusing to bow to oppression. And it's just beginning. But as the first black ships breach the outer rim, moving silently toward the heart of the Empire, a chilling question remains. Will humanity's forgotten fleet be enough to conquer back the freedom of the stars? Or will their return plunge the galaxy into a darkness deeper than before? The answer lies somewhere out there waiting to be revealed, and so the stage is set. The countdown has begun. The Black Ship Dominion has returned. The battle for the stars is about to start. In the quiet moments before dawn on a remote outpost, the hum of the control panels filled the room, steady and unchanging, until the silence was shattered by a faint signal. At first it was barely noticeable, a whisper lost in the endless noise of space. But the technician at the console knew better. There was something unusual in that signal, something almost familiar. It was an echo from the past, something buried deep beneath layers of history and government silence. The Black Ship Dominion was no longer just a legend. For decades, the galaxy had lived under the heavy hand of the ruling empire. Trade routes were controlled, information censored, and rebellion crushed before it could take root. Freedom was a word spoken only in secret, shared between hushed voices and coded messages. People had grown tired, beaten down by years of oppression, their dreams of exploring the stars replaced by the harsh reality of survival. But in the shadows, hope still flickered. And the Black Ship Dominion was that hope. The fleet's origins were shrouded in mystery. Long before the Empire rose to power, a group of visionaries, engineers, scientists, and explorers had secretly built a fleet of ships designed for something greater than conquest. They dreamed of humanity's expansion beyond Earth, not as subjects of a distant government, but as free citizens of the galaxy. Their work was so advanced, so revolutionary, it was feared by those who craved control. The fleet was hidden away, labeled a threat, and eventually erased from official records. People forgot, or chose to forget. But those ships waited, lying dormant in the darkness, ready to return. Now as those black silhouettes cut through space like shadows come to life, the Empire's grip trembles. Reports of the fleet's movements send ripples through the corridors of power. Commanders scramble to gather intelligence, but the Dominion's technology is unlike anything seen in decades. Their ships move with uncanny silence and speed, disappearing and reappearing beyond sensor reach. They don't just challenge the Empire's strength, they challenge its very understanding of the universe. Among the Empire's leaders, fear mixes with disbelief. Some dismiss the fleet as a relic, a ghost story meant to inspire faint hope but nothing more. Others know better. They remember the early days of the Dominion, when whispered warnings of rebellion were crushed with brutal force. They understand that the fleet's return could inspire those who still long for freedom to rise up. And that kind of unrest is dangerous. In one forgotten sector, the technician who first picked up the signal has no idea of the weight resting on their shoulders. Their discovery sets off a chain of events, drawing attention from both the Empire's enforcers and the elusive members of the Dominion. Suddenly, their life becomes a tangled web of secrecy and suspicion. Every choice matters, every moment counts. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship of the Black Ship Dominion, the atmosphere is tense. The leaders, hardened by years in hiding, know that the time to act has come, but questions remain unanswered. How much resistance will they face? How many allies will stand with them? And most importantly, can they keep the fleet united long enough to strike the first blow? Inside the black hulls, the crew members are more than soldiers. They are believers in a cause greater than themselves. They've trained in secrecy, lived apart from the empires, and carried the burden of a dream too dangerous to share openly. For many, the return to the stars is a chance to reclaim a lost future, but it's also a leap into the unknown. The vastness of space offers no guarantees, only opportunity and risk. Beyond the immediate conflict, deeper questions linger. What is the true nature of the Empire's power? What secrets have been kept hidden to maintain control? The Dominion's leaders suspect that the Empire's strength is built on more than just military might, that dark alliances and buried truths play a role. The coming confrontation could expose those secrets, but at what cost? Amid this growing storm, ordinary people feel the impact in subtle ways. Traders whisper rumors of black ships appearing near trade lanes. Families watch the skies nervously, wondering if the quiet life they know will soon be shattered. Rebel groups that once operated in the shadows begin to stir, emboldened by the fleet's return but unsure if they can trust in a plan still unfolding. The galaxy is on the brink of change, but the path forward is unclear. The Dominion's arrival challenges not just the Empire's control, but the very idea of who humanity is in the vastness of space. Is humanity destined to be caged by power and fear, or can the spirit of freedom truly be reborn among the stars? As tension mounts, unexpected alliances start to form. Some within the Empire's ranks question their loyalty, haunted by the memories of a freer time they barely dared to hope for. Others plot their own moves, seeing the chaos as an opportunity for personal gain. The battlefield is as much political as it is cosmic, with trust a rare and fragile commodity. In this uncertain landscape, the fleet's movements become a beacon and a warning. Every jump through space, every signal sent, ripples across star systems, awakening old wounds and new fears. The Black Ship Dominion is not just a fleet returning. It is a challenge to the status quo, a spark in the darkness that could ignite the fires of revolution or lead to destruction. And just as the first true confrontation looms on the horizon, questions multiply. Who will stand with the Dominion? Who will resist? And what sacrifices will be demanded when the fight for the stars begins in earnest? The answers lie in the coming days, in decisions made under pressure and moments of courage born in the void. But one thing is certain. Humanity's long-forgotten fleet has returned, and nothing will ever be the same again. The galaxy waits, holding its breath, on the edge of what comes next. The tension in the galaxy was palpable, spreading like a quiet storm through star systems both near and far. The Empire's forces were mobilizing, their warships cutting through space with purpose, trying desperately to track the elusive Black Ship Dominion. But the fleet was always just out of reach, slipping through patrols and scanners with a skill born of decades in hiding. Every failed attempt to catch them only deepened the Empire's frustration and fear. Inside the Empire's command centers, the air was thick with unease. Generals debated strategies, but no one had a clear answer. How do you fight a fleet built not just for war, but for survival? One that seemed to know every weakness, every blind spot in the Empire's defenses? The Empire's propaganda had always painted the Dominion as rebels, outlaws threatening peace and order. But now, many questioned if they might be something more. Perhaps the galaxy's only chance at a real future. In the heart of a sprawling capital city on one of the Empire's core worlds, a high-ranking officer sat alone in his office, staring at the flickering hologram of the Black Ship Dominion's formation. His mind was racing with old memories of a time before the Empire's iron fist. He remembered stories whispered in secret, of a fleet built not to conquer but to protect humanity's freedom. But those stories were dangerous to believe. Still, seeing the fleet return stirred something he had long buried: doubt. Could the Empire really hold on to control, or was it time for change? Far from the centers of power, in the outer colonies where life was harsher and the Empire's reach weaker, whispers of rebellion were growing louder. Small groups of resistance fighters, once fractured and isolated, now looked to the Dominion's return as a sign. It wasn't just about the ships. It was about what they represented: a chance to stand up, to fight back, to reclaim a sense of identity lost under the Empire's shadow. But with hope came risk. These rebels knew the Empire's response would be swift and brutal. One such group operated from a hidden base carved into the rocky surface of a remote moon. The leader, a veteran of countless skirmishes, was wary but hopeful. They had heard the rumors, intercepted the signals, and now awaited confirmation. When the first message from the Dominion's fleet crackled through their encrypted channels, it was like a spark setting dry tinder ablaze. Plans were hastily drawn, alliances reconsidered, and weapons readied. But the leader also knew the cost of rebellion: lives, trust, and the thin line between hope and despair. Meanwhile, aboard one of the Black Ship Dominion's vessels, a young pilot trained for years in the art of stealth and combat prepared for their first mission. Their hands trembled slightly as they ran final checks on the cockpit systems, heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. They had grown up hearing stories of the Empire's oppression, of families torn apart, of worlds enslaved. Now they had a chance to make a difference, to be part of something greater than themselves. But the reality was daunting. Every jump through space brought new dangers, new unknowns. The future was uncertain. Not all within the Dominion were united in purpose. A quiet tension simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. Some among the fleet's commanders pushed for aggressive action, believing the only way to reclaim freedom was through overwhelming force. Others urged caution, fearing that reckless attacks would provoke the Empire into total war and crush any chance for lasting peace. The debate was fierce and trust fragile. In the silence of the command deck, alliances shifted like shadows, and every decision carried weight beyond the battlefield. back on a world under Empire control, a scientist worked feverishly on technology rumored to have been inspired by the Dominion's own designs, advanced engines, energy shields, and weapon systems unlike anything currently deployed. The Empire had long scavenged lost tech from abandoned outposts and crashed ships, trying to reverse engineer what they couldn't create themselves. This scientist was caught between loyalty to the Empire and a growing unease about the price of control. What if the technology they were perfecting would only deepen the galaxy's divisions? Across the stars, ordinary people felt the ripple effects of the growing conflict. Traders spoke in hushed tones about routes suddenly closed or altered. Families debated leaving home worlds for safer places, unsure if peace could last. Children listened to stories of the Black Ship Dominion with wide eyes, imagining heroes returning from myth to fight for freedom. And in quiet moments, many wondered if the war looming on the horizon was something they could survive, or if the galaxy would be changed forever. Even within the Empire's own ranks, cracks began to show. Some officers questioned the ruthless tactics used to maintain control, mass surveillance, forced labor, and censorship that stretched to every corner of society. Whispers of dissent grew, fueled by the fear that the Black Ship Dominion was more than just a threat. It was a reckoning. These silent dissenters kept their doubts close, afraid of the consequences. But their growing numbers hinted at a deeper unrest beneath the Empire's polished surface. The conflict wasn't just about ships or battles. It was a clash of ideals. On one side, an empire desperate to hold on to power, convinced that order must be maintained at any cost. On the other, a fleet representing a lost vision of freedom, risking everything to ignite a new beginning. Both sides faced impossible choices, caught between duty and belief, survival and sacrifice. In the void between stars, the Black Ship Dominion prepared its first major strike, not just to prove their strength, but to send a message. Every move was calculated. Every risk weighed against the potential for inspiring the galaxy's oppressed to rise. The Empire, sensing the threat growing by the day, deployed its finest fleets, ready to meet the challenge with overwhelming force. The stage was set for a confrontation that could decide the fate of billions. But as these forces moved into position, a shadowy figure observed from the edges of known space, someone whose allegiance was unclear, whose goals remained hidden. This observer had ties to both sides, understanding the fragile balance and the power it held. Their actions could tip the scales, but whether toward peace or destruction was yet to be seen. The tension thickened like a tightening noose. Allies were sought, betrayals feared. Messages intercepted, plans revised in secret chambers. Every small victory or setback carried consequences that rippled across the galaxy. No one could afford to trust blindly, and every decision mattered more than ever. As the Black Ship Dominion's black hulls moved closer to the Empire's heart, the universe seemed to hold its breath. The coming clash was inevitable, but its outcome was still unwritten. Would the fleet's return ignite the spark of revolution, or unleash a war that consumed everything? The answers lay hidden in the stars, waiting for the moment when silence would break with the roar of battle. And in that silence, every soul in the galaxy waited, watching, hoping, fearing, knowing that when the first shot was fired, there would be no turning back. The galaxy had never felt so tense. Every star system seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable storm to break. The Black Ship Dominion was no longer a distant rumor or a forgotten myth. It was real, and it was here. The fleet's slow, deliberate approach toward the Empire's core worlds sent ripples of fear and hope in equal measure. In the quiet corners of space, every eye was fixed on the horizon, every sensor tuned for the first sign of conflict. Inside the Dominion's flagship, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. The leaders, once divided by strategy and doubt, now shared a grim understanding that their moment had come. Every decision made in the last months, the secret missions, the covert alliances, the stolen technologies, had led to this point. The fleet's crew prepared for battle, but beneath the disciplined exterior, hearts beat faster with the knowledge that this fight was about more than just ships and weapons. It was about reclaiming humanity's future. Among the young pilots, the rush of adrenaline was mingled with fear. This was no longer a training exercise or a distant hope, it was real. The lives of countless people, the freedom of entire worlds, depended on their skill and courage. One pilot, gripping the controls tightly, glanced at the star field beyond the cockpit window. The black ships, their home and shield, waited behind them. Ahead lay the Empire's defenses, ready and waiting to strike. On the other side, the Empire's forces braced themselves for the coming storm. Commanders paced in their strategy rooms, their faces etched with lines of stress and fatigue. For years, they had believed the Dominion was a ghost, a fading threat from a long-past era. Now they faced a fleet as powerful and determined as any they had ever encountered. Intelligence reports were grim. The fleet's tactics were unpredictable, their technology unfamiliar, their resolve unbreakable. In a high-security chamber, the Empire's supreme leader stood silent, watching a live feed of the Dominion's approach. Behind that cold exterior was a mind racing through every possible outcome. The Empire had held power for so long through control and fear, but the return of the Dominion threatened to unravel everything. The leader's voice was calm but resolute when orders were given. Prepare the defenses, ready the fleets, crush any spark of rebellion before it could ignite. Yet, even within the Empire, cracks appeared. Some officers, haunted by memories of a freer past, hesitated. They saw the Dominion not as enemies, but as a symbol of hope. Quiet meetings were held in shadowed halls, whispers exchanged between those unwilling to continue blind obedience. They wondered if it was possible to find a different way, but fear of retribution kept their voices low. Meanwhile, deep in the outer colonies, resistance groups stirred. The Dominion's return was a rallying cry that sent waves through these hidden communities. Fighters sharpened their skills, stockpiled weapons, and prepared for coordinated strikes. Yet uncertainty lingered. Could these scattered groups unite? Could they trust the Dominion's plans? The stakes were more than survival. They were the chance to rewrite the story of humanity's place in the stars. Back aboard the Dominion's fleet, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The pressure of the coming battle tested bonds and beliefs. Some commanders pushed for a swift, decisive strike to break the Empire's will, believing hesitation would be fatal. Others urged caution, warning that an all-out assault could destroy everything they had worked for. Arguments flared in private, and alliances shifted with the tides of uncertainty. The crew watched these debates silently, knowing that any misstep could mean disaster. In the quiet moments between preparation and action, the young pilot recalled stories from childhood, tales of heroes who fought not for glory, but for the chance to breathe free under open skies. Those stories had seemed distant, almost impossible until now. The pilot's hands tightened around the controls as the fleet drew closer to the Empire's outer defenses. The first real test looming ahead. Sensors suddenly blinked with incoming data. Enemy fleets on the move, preparing to intercept. The silence shattered with the buzz of alarms and urgent commands. In the command deck, officers exchanged rapid reports. The Empire was mobilizing faster than expected, deploying squadrons to block the fleet's path. The tension ratcheted up another notch. The long-anticipated battle was about to begin. In the midst of this chaos, the shadowy figure who had been watching from afar made a move. Crossing into uncharted space, they sent a cryptic message intercepted by both the Empire and the Dominion. The contents were unclear, but the timing suggested a play that could change everything. Allies grew suspicious, enemies wary. Trust became a rare currency, as every faction questioned what the shadowy presence wanted, and who, if anyone, they truly served. On a remote colony, the resistance leader received the mysterious message. The words stirred hope but also fear. Was this an opportunity or a trap? The choice weighed heavily, whether to commit to an uncertain alliance or stand alone in the coming storm. Around them, the people waited, their lives hanging in the balance. The Empire's fleets converged at the outer rim, black ships appearing like shadows against the stars. The two forces faced off across the void, tension crackling in the cold vacuum of space. In command centers, officers gave their final orders. Soldiers steeled themselves for the fight to come, and commanders exchanged last-minute instructions. the galaxy's future balanced on a knife's edge. Back inside the Dominion's flagship, the leaders gathered one last time before the attack. Faces were set, eyes sharp with determination and worry. They knew this was more than a battle. It was a test of their vision, their unity, their very survival. The questions hung heavy. Would the fleet's return be the dawn of freedom or the spark that ignited destruction? Could they hold together long enough to see their dream realized? Outside, the black ships moved silently, advancing toward the Empire's defenses with a mix of stealth and purpose. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the moment when silence would break. Suddenly, the first shots rang out, bright flashes of light cutting through the darkness. The battle had begun. Explosions blossomed across the void as ships danced between beams of energy and missiles, the calm of space shattered by the fury of conflict. Pilots fought with everything they had, maneuvering through debris and fire. The young pilot's heart pounded in their chest, every second a test of skill and nerve. Behind the scenes, commanders barked orders, desperate to turn the tide. But this was no simple clash of fleets. The battle carried deeper meaning: freedom versus control, hope versus fear. Each strike echoed the struggles of countless souls caught in the galaxy's grip. Lives were risked, sacrifices made, and the cost of rebellion became painfully clear. As the fight raged, unexpected alliances were tested. Messages crossed between resistance fighters and Dominion ships, coordinating strikes on supply lines and outposts. The Empire responded with ruthless efficiency, determined to crush any spark of defiance. Yet even amid the chaos, the shadowy figure's influence became clearer. Their moves disrupted communications and spread confusion, forcing both sides to adapt quickly. No one knew if this mysterious player sought peace, power, or something darker. The battle reached a crescendo, with the Dominion's fleet pushing deeper into the Empire's territory. Each ship lost was mourned, each victory celebrated quietly. The balance teetered precariously, and the galaxy watched as history unfolded. At that moment, with the stars blazing around them and the fate of billions hanging in the balance, the story paused, not with resolution, but with the promise of what was yet to come. The black ship Dominion had returned. The fight for the freedom of the stars was only beginning, and the question remained, how far would humanity go to reclaim its place among them? Just when it seemed the battle might tip in favor of the black ship Dominion, a new, shocking development shattered the fragile momentum. The Empire's forces, pushed to the brink, unveiled a secret weapon, something long hidden beneath layers of classified files and forgotten archives. A colossal ship, unlike any seen before, emerged from the shadows of a distant asteroid belt. Its sleek black hull absorbed the light around it, and its presence sent a ripple of shock through both sides. This was no ordinary warship. It was a symbol of the Empire's hidden strength, and its willingness to unleash devastation. To maintain control, the fleet commanders aboard the Dominion's flagship watched in stunned silence as the massive vessel activated its weapon systems. Energy coils hummed, and a pulsing glow spread across the ship's surface, signaling power unlike anything encountered before. The young pilot gripping the controls in the cockpit felt a chill run down their spine. The tide was shifting fast, and the battle had just grown far more dangerous. This new threat forced the Dominion's leaders to rethink everything. Their carefully planned strikes, their hopes for a swift victory, now faced an enemy capable of leveling entire fleets with a single blast. The Empire's hidden warship was a reminder that the fight for freedom wouldn't be easy or quick. At the same time, whispers began to spread among the Empire's ranks. The shadowy figure who had been manipulating events from the edges of space made their presence known in an unexpected way. A transmission, encrypted and almost impossible to trace, was broadcast simultaneously to both sides. It carried a message that stunned everyone, a warning that the Empire's secret weapon was just the beginning, and that darker forces were stirring in the galaxy's depths. This revelation sent shockwaves through the already fragile alliances. The resistance fighters in the outer colonies debated fiercely over the transmission. Was this a call to unite against a common enemy, or a trap designed to fracture their fragile coalition? The choice weighed heavily, for acting without trust could mean destruction, while hesitation could cost them the chance to survive. Within the Empire's own high command, the secret weapon's appearance exposed deep divisions. Some officers hailed it as the key to crushing the Dominion once and for all, while others feared the reckless use of such power could provoke an uncontrollable backlash. The Supreme Leader remained unreadable, but the tension beneath the surface was unmistakable. The Empire's grip was tightening, but so was the risk of collapse. Meanwhile, the mysterious observer who had sent the warning moved closer to the heart of the conflict. Their ship, cloaked and silent, slipped through the chaos, gathering intelligence and watching reactions. No one knew their true intentions, whether they sought to protect the galaxy, seize power, or simply watch civilizations burn. Their presence was a wild card, raising the stakes and keeping everyone on edge. Back aboard the Dominion's flagship, the mood was grim but resolute. The leaders scrambled to adapt to the new reality. Strategies were rewritten overnight. Pilots trained in new maneuvers, technicians worked to counter the Empire's secret weapon, and diplomats reached out to scattered rebel groups with renewed urgency. The fight for the stars had become more than a battle. It was a race against time and overwhelming power. Amid this chaos, the young pilot found themselves thrust into the center of a critical mission. Tasked with leading a daring strike against the Empire's secret weapon, they knew the risks were greater than ever. The weight of countless hopes and fears pressed down on them, yet their determination burned brighter. This was more than a fight for survival. It was a chance to reclaim a future stolen by fear and control. Outside the battle space, ordinary people watched the unfolding conflict with a mix of dread and hope. Messages from the front lines filtered through networks, spreading news of both courage and loss. Families huddled in shelters, wondering if their worlds would survive the coming storm. Traders whispered rumors of shifting alliances and secret deals. The Black Ship Dominion's return was no longer just a story. It was a reality changing lives across the galaxy. The Empire, sensing the shifting balance, escalated its tactics. Supply lines were cut, communications jammed, and entire worlds placed under lockdown. The secret weapon's destructive power was wielded not just against fleets, but against civilian centers suspected of harboring rebels. The price of rebellion rose steeply, and the Dominion faced the harsh truth that freedom would come at a great cost. Yet in the midst of devastation, unexpected acts of bravery and kindness emerged. Pilots risked everything to protect civilian transports. Resistance leaders negotiated fragile truces between rival factions. And even within the Empire's ranks, some whispered of a different future. A galaxy where freedom wasn't a distant dream, but a shared reality. The shadowy figure continued to pull strings behind the scenes, their true goals a mystery that haunted both sides. Rumors swirled. Some claimed they were a former Empire agent turned rogue. Others whispered of an ancient faction thought lost to time. Whatever their origin, their influence complicated every plan, every move, turning the battle into a complex web of trust and betrayal. As the Dominion's fleet prepared for the decisive strike, the Empire readied its defenses. Sensors flared with incoming ships, energy shields flared to life, and commanders issued last orders with a mix of confidence and dread. The galaxy's future hung in the balance, the outcome uncertain. The young pilot's mission was clear but perilous. Penetrate the enemy's defenses, disable the secret weapon, and pave the way for the Dominion's advance. Every detail mattered, every second counted. In the quiet moments before takeoff, the pilots' thoughts turned to those they fought for, friends, family, the countless lives yearning for freedom among the stars. And then, just as the mission was about to begin, a new piece of the puzzle fell into place. Intelligence intercepted by the Dominion revealed a shocking truth. Someone from within their own ranks was feeding information to the Empire. A traitor hidden among those who believed in freedom, whose betrayal threatened to unravel everything. The revelation sent shockwaves through the fleet. Trust, already fragile, cracked further. Leaders scrambled to identify the mole, knowing that one wrong move could doom them all. The young pilot felt the weight of suspicion, but also the urgency to push forward. There was no turning back. As the black ships surged forward toward the Empire's secret weapon, The tension reached a fever pitch. The battle was no longer just between fleets. It was a struggle for the very soul of humanity's future. Allies were tested, enemies hardened, and the line between friend and foe blurred. The galaxy stood at the edge of a precipice, the shadow of war stretching across countless worlds. The Black Ship Dominion's return had sparked a conflict more complex and dangerous than anyone had imagined. And now, with hidden enemies, secret weapons, and mysterious forces at play, the stakes had never been higher. The moment of truth approached, where every choice, every action would echo through the stars for generations to come. The fight for freedom, for survival, for the right to dream among the stars, was about to reach its breaking point. And in the darkness of space, as the first engines roared and the fleets closed in, one question burned brighter than all others. Who would emerge victorious, and at what cost? The moment had arrived. The Black Ship Dominion's fleet was poised to launch its most daring assault yet. The secret weapon, towering, ominous, and pulsing with raw energy, loomed ahead, a fortress built to crush rebellion before it could bloom. But beneath the vast darkness of space, something far more personal was unfolding. The young pilot gripped the controls tightly, their breaths shallow but steady, the weight of the galaxy pressing on their shoulders. This was the fight that would define everything: freedom, survival, hope. As the fleet surged forward, the Empire's defenses responded with relentless fury. Energy beams lanced through the void, exploding against sleek black hulls, but the Dominion's ships pressed on. The battle was fierce, chaotic, fleets colliding in a deadly dance where skill and courage meant the difference between life and death. The young pilot weaved through the chaos, dodging fire, protecting allies, and pushing closer to the heart of the enemy's power. Inside the Empire's colossal weapon, systems hummed with tension. The secret weapon's core was guarded by layers of shields and automated defenses, designed to withstand any assault. But the Dominion's engineers had prepared for this moment. A specialized strike team, led by a seasoned commander, launched a covert operation to infiltrate and disable the weapon from within. Theirs was a race against time as alarms blared and enemy troops scrambled to respond. The battle outside grew even more intense. The Empire's secret weapon unleashed devastating blasts, tearing through the Dominion's formation, but the fleet held together, fueled by a fierce determination. Pilots fought with unmatched bravery, knowing that every sacrifice mattered. The young pilot's ship shook from a near miss, but they pressed on, eyes fixed on the target. Inside the enemy stronghold, the infiltration team pushed deeper, overcoming traps and fierce resistance. The commander moved with precision, issuing orders with calm resolve. They knew failure was not an option. As they reached the core, the countdown to the weapon's ultimate firing began. A tense silence filled the room before the commander initiated the shutdown sequence. Back on the bridge of the Dominion's flagship, news of the infiltration success sparked a wave of relief and renewed hope. The secret weapon's power began to falter, shields flickering as systems shut down. The Empire's grip weakened, and the tide of battle shifted. The fleet pressed their advantage, striking with coordinated precision, but just as victory seemed within reach, chaos erupted. The traitor within the Dominion's ranks revealed themselves. A trusted officer, driven by fear and a desire for power, sabotaged communications and opened the fleet's positions to the Empire's forces. Enemy ships suddenly appeared where none were expected, launching surprise attacks that tore through the Dominion's defenses. The shock was immediate and brutal. The young pilot's squadron was caught in a deadly crossfire, friends lost in moments. The betrayal cut deep, shaking morale and trust. Leaders scrambled to contain the damage and hunt the traitor. But the chaos threatened to unravel everything the Dominion had fought for. In the midst of this turmoil, the mysterious observer revealed their true identity. Not a rogue agent, but an ancient protector, a member of a secret order sworn to safeguard the balance of the galaxy. They had watched humanity's conflict unfold, intervening only when the stakes threatened to spiral into total destruction. Now seeing the weapon's power and the betrayal's fallout, they stepped forward with a warning and an offer. Their technology, far beyond anything either side possessed, could neutralize the secret weapon and bring peace. but only if both the Empire and the Dominion agreed to an unprecedented ceasefire. The observer's revelation stunned everyone. Was this the key to ending the war, or another manipulation in a game of power? Leaders on both sides faced impossible choices. The Empire's supreme leader, pride wounded but pragmatism prevailing, hesitated before finally agreeing to negotiations. The Dominion's commanders, battered but resolute, recognized the opportunity to prevent further bloodshed. The fragile ceasefire was declared, and the observer's technology was deployed. The secret weapon's core dimmed, its devastating potential neutralized. The fleet, weary but unbroken, held their formation as peace talks began in orbit. The galaxy exhaled, tentative but hopeful. Yet peace was not simple. The traitors' capture revealed deeper fractures within the Dominion and the Empire. Many still clung to old fears and grudges, and the path forward was uncertain. Rebuilding trust would take time, and the shadows of war lingered. As negotiations continued, the young pilot sat alone, reflecting on the journey, the battles, the losses, the hope that had carried them through. The stars outside shimmered, silent witnesses to humanity's struggle for freedom. But just when it seemed the worst was behind them, the observer's final message came through, chilling and cryptic. A new threat, older and darker than anything known, was awakening beyond the edges of explored space. The galaxy's fragile peace might only be the calm before an even greater storm. The young pilot's eyes narrowed. The fight for the stars was far from over, and as the fleets prepared to face whatever lay ahead, one truth remained clear. Freedom was never truly won. It was a constant battle written in the stars themselves. The silence that followed the final transmission from the ancient observer was heavy, but not empty. In the aftermath of the battle and the uneasy ceasefire, the Black Ship Dominion and the Empire found themselves facing a new reality, one that demanded more than weapons and tactics. It required understanding, healing, and a willingness to imagine a future beyond endless conflict. The young pilot, still recovering from the loss and betrayal that had marked the war's most brutal moments, looked out from the bridge of their ship. The stars outside seemed calmer now, less hostile. The fleet had returned from the edge of destruction, battered but intact. Their mission to reclaim humanity's freedom in the stars had not ended in total victory or defeat. It had ended in a fragile peace that was both a beginning and a test. In the days that followed, the ceasefire held. The Empire's forces pulled back from contested systems, and the Dominion began dismantling their war efforts, replacing them with rebuilding initiatives. Colonies that had been ravaged by war saw relief supplies arrive for the first time in years. People began to dream again, cautiously but with growing hope. Leaders from both sides met under neutral flags, navigating the difficult path of peace talks. Old wounds were acknowledged, grievances aired, and promises made. It wasn't easy. Trust had been shattered in too many places, but the shared desire to avoid further destruction pushed negotiations forward. The secret weapon, once a looming threat, was dismantled piece by piece. Its technology studied carefully to ensure it could never be used to threaten freedom again. The resistance groups scattered across the outer colonies played a vital role in this new chapter. No longer forced into the shadows, they became representatives in the talks, ensuring that the voices of ordinary people, those who had suffered most, were heard. Their stories of loss and resilience reminded everyone that the war's cost extended far beyond ships and soldiers. The traitor who had nearly undone the Dominion was brought to justice, but the trial revealed something more complex than simple betrayal. Fear and desperation had driven the officer to betray their comrades, a stark reminder that war changes people in profound ways. This truth encouraged the leaders to address the deeper issues within their ranks: mistrust, fear, and the lingering effects of trauma. The mysterious observer, having fulfilled their role in guiding both sides toward peace, prepared to depart. Their technology remained, a gift and a warning. The galaxy was vast, and darkness still lurked in unexplored regions. They left behind a message that echoed through every communication channel. Vigilance and unity were humanity's greatest tools for survival. As the observer's ship vanished into the stars, the young pilot stood alongside comrades and former enemies alike. In that moment, there was a sense of shared purpose that transcended old divisions. The war had tested them all, but it had also shown that humanity's true strength lay not in weapons or fleets, but in connection and hope. The fleet began to chart new courses, not for battle, but for exploration, trade, and rebuilding. The stars, once the backdrop for conflict, now held the promise of discovery and cooperation. The lessons learned from the war shaped new policies and alliances, emphasizing freedom and mutual respect. Yet, even as peace settled over the galaxy, the pilot knew the journey was far from over. Freedom was not a destination but a constant effort, a daily choice to stand against fear and division. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time it felt possible. In quiet moments, the pilot reflected on the faces lost and the sacrifices made. Each victory was bittersweet, each peace fragile. But those struggles had forged a new path, one where humanity could reach for the stars without chains. And so, as the Black Ship Dominion's fleet sailed forward into the vast expanse, it carried more than ships and weapons. It carried the enduring spirit of those who dared to believe in a brighter tomorrow. The freedom of the stars was theirs to protect, nurture, and expand, for every soul yearning for hope in the endless night. The story of the Black Ship Dominion had come full circle, not with a final battle won or lost, but with the quiet strength of a people united by their dreams. And as the stars shone down on the fleet, the future awaited, open, vast, and full of promise.